Monday, June 24th, 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our daily press review on CAM1 radio and television. I am your presenter, Colonel Charles Bane. We kickstart this session today with municipal updates, which is already out in the stands as we speak. Municipal updates headlines today with the atrocities in the northwest and southwest regions, respectively, and says the Norwegian Prime Minister Ayabacho is to appear, the Norwegian Prime Minister and Ayabacho are to appear in a United States court in regards to the atrocities in the northwest and southwest regions as a result of the ongoing Anglophone crisis. Now, board salutes NASLA's Director General's management stride. That is what Municipal Updates has in store today for us. And also says in Donga Mantung, Judith Achidi, who happens to be the Chief Executive Officer of CAMTEL, uses sports to promote peace and unity in that part of the country. Plus, LUCMEF training intends on employable skills. All of this could be read today on municipal updates, which is already in the stands today for us. The media is also out today and says presidential ordinance as BIA inflates 2024 state budget by 8%, counting on foreign loans. That's what the media has in store today for us, and also says prohibitive cost of the new national ID card sparks outrage in the country, given the fact that there have been a lot of costs in regards to this particular ID card inflation. Moreover, evoking modernization, 48 hours production. That's what the ID card is cost actually has in value for us, because the ID card now will be produced in 48 hours max. So the cost has actually also increased and has been inflated, yes, to come up with this particular technology. CSPH board hails efforts to optimize income and cut expenses. That is what the media has in store today for us. Plus, the corps of fallen army general welcomed home as Vice Admiral Guan Gali corps has been welcomed home when he was on training abroad. This is something which can be a story which could be read today on the media. The Sun is also out today, and the Sun talks about Limbe, most precisely, and says the Limbe City Council launches studies to update Limbe's urban master plan as city mayor. Efome unveils town's developmental vision or development vision. That's what the Sun has in store today for us. And also says city mayor drivers unite to overcome evil in Bamenda, that's in the northwest region of the country, with new taxi gifted to physically challenged victims of car arson. Yes. Plus, city mayor says bikes will return to night work when security improves. And plus, terrorists and terrorism denounced by the Bamenda Council, City Council, who have actually denounced terrorism in that part of the country. The Sun also talks about Honorable Rose Abuno, who urges ex-university of Benin students in Cameroon to work to make association greater. That's what the Sun has in store today for us. You could read this story today on the Sun newspaper, most precisely on page 6. Also, the Southwest Governor signals crackdown on hard drug consumers. Another must-read story today on the Sun on page 3. You could read this story today. Also, Cameroon spent over 14 billion francs CFA to import cigarettes and cigars in 2023 alone. That is what the Sun has in store today for us, and it's giving us statistics on the importation of cigars and cigarettes as of 2023 in Cameroon, which amounts to almost 14 billion francs CFA just for that particular product alone in Cameroon. Fire got part of Christ Embassy headquarters in Lagos. Another story which could also be read today on the Sun newspaper. The Guardian Post is also out today and says, ordinance to readjust state budget. Camto berates BR regime for choking citizens with abusive tax increase. The MRC leadership's succession or reaction comes barely days after BR signed an ordinance proposing a sharp increase in the cost of national identity cards, stamp duty on passports, and also other vital services. All of this could be read today on the Guardian Post on page 3 to be most specific. Now, the Guardian Post also throws light on the Paris court throws out Douala International Terminal case against Port Authority of Douala. Another most read story today on the Guardian Post, the case between the Port Authority in Douala and the Paris terminal. All of this could be read today on the Guardian Post. Meantime, Jindal Boss pledges to construct Cameroon's first ever mineral analysis laboratory. On page 5, you could read this story today on the Guardian Post as he was in an audience with the Prime Minister, Chief Dr. Joseph John Gute. Now, Yaoundé should have compassion for Cameroonian refugees too. That's the editorial part today of the Guardian Post, and it's reassuring or reiterating that Yaoundé should also have compassion for Cameroonian refugees. Moreover, Defense and Security Forces treat population on World Music Day. Another story for the lovers of music today on the Guardian Post. It's also out today for us to read. The Dawn is also out today and say Cameroon hosts African Athletes Championship in style. Plus, CDC board management to fast track import substitution. All of these stories could be read today on the Dawn newspaper, which is also out today, Monday, June 24, 2024. War against drugs in Kumba 2 intensify as the authorities there are struggling to make sure that drug consumers, the rate of drug consumers reduce in that part of the country. Manu Senior Divisional Officer to begin contact tour in Tinto. Another story which could be read today on the Dawn newspaper as African Athletics Championship Cameroonian athletes struggle within the context of the African Athletes Championship, which is already taking place in Douala as we speak, most precisely at the Japoma Stadium. The Horizon newspaper is out today and says outrage at hike in identity card issuance. That's what the Horizon paper has in store today for us. I say Consumers Association condemns disproportionate increase as Camto decries stagnation of Cameroonian, or strangulation rather, of Cameroonians. That's what Professor Maurice Camto has to say about this particular ordinance signed by the president and head of state, President Paul Biya. Now, the 11th General Assembly, RecuCam, admits 5 more affiliates. All of these stories could be read today on the Horizon. Plus, Jindal Steel and Power Boss announces construction of Pioneer Mineral Analysis Laboratory. Still another story you could read today on the Horizon newspaper. At Kafu Policy Institute Round Table on Women Empowerment, panelists recommend education sensitization as way forward. Plus, they also have the Popular Action Party, which presents Jangdini Stable as presidential candidate for 2025 elections at National Council Convention in Boya. You can read all of these stories today on the Horizon newspaper. Meanwhile, the Horizon newspaper also talks about the Widikum Council empowers over 500 farmers groups. You can read this story on page 5 on the Horizon newspaper, which is already out in the stands today. The French papers are also out today, and you know our tradition here at CAM1, we always translate them for you people so you guys can actually understand what is being written on the French papers, which are also out today on the stands. We begin with L'Equation, which talks about the incompetence of Amadou Sadanua, Director General of the SIC Corporation. According to L'Equation, ever since he ascended to the helm of the corporation in 2019, Amadou Sadanua has not been doing so well because results have not been expected the right way. Lucas also highlights Emmanuel Nganu Njumesi, his expose during the 27th session of the CONARUT, where the minister talks about, has a lot to say about this particular conference at CONARUT. The Tribunal du Grand Sud is also out today, talks about the administrative issues between mayors and deputies in Mefu and Anfamba in the south region of the country. That Tribune du Grand Sud questions if by 2025 perspectives might or will change in that part of the country. That's the south region of the country between the mayors and deputies and their deputies at the Mefu and Afamba localities in that part of the country. Telegram is also out today on its own part, changes the narrative and points out the accomplishments of Amadou Sadanua, the Director General of the SIC Corporation, and that's what Telegram has in store today for us. Journal du Week Info is also out today and says a federal court in the US, most precisely in Los Angeles, has received a complaint by a collective of lawyers and legal minds headed by a prominent lawyer who goes by the name of Emmanuel Nsalai. According to Journal du Week Info, Ayabacho's country of residence, Norway, has played a principal role in the destabilization of inhabitants in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. The lawyers demand 600 billion francs CFA from the Norwegian government as indemnity claim for the victims and the internally displaced persons in the northwest and southwest regions, respectively. Sunday 2 paper is out today and says critics have been voicing out their discontentment following the published list from the World Bank in regards to the management of ports in Cameroon. And you can read the story today on page 5 of Sunday 2 paper, which is out today. Governance is also out today and says the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paula Tanganji, is waging war against political disorder. You can read this story today on page 8 and 7 on governance paper, which is out today. The reporter paper is also out today on headlines with the African Athleticism Championship currently going on in Douala at the Chapoma Stadium. Plus, the Zenith paper is also out today. Says brave revelations have sufficed against Amira Joseph Fuda and Parfait Heve Bapum. You can read this story today on the Zenith paper, which is an exclusive story today on most newspapers today, as it has been trending. A story which has been trending over the weekend. A code du Parliament is also out there and says 3 senators, 9 deputies, and 10 members of government posed a series of questions at the Senate and National Assembly on the management of affairs of the executive body in Cameroon. A code du Parliament also pays homage to Honorable Nkwa Luke, whose mortal remains were received by at the Simalen International Airport by Honorable Kodo Dan Roger, Secretary at the National Assembly Bureau, and the personal representative of the President of the National Assembly, Kabaye Yege Jibril. It should be noted that Hoheve, Honorable Kwaluk, was a former deputy at the National Assembly. Hebdo Meomesala talks the law of finance as President Paul Biya tonifies it on page 6 and 7. You could read everything concerning the tonification of the law of finance by President Paul Biya on Hebdo Meomesala. La Croix du Septentrion is out today investigates the poorest regions in Cameroon, and the far north region happens to top the list. Plus, in Garoua, in the north region, it is reported by La Croix du Septentrion that the theft of children is alarming at an unprecedented rate. La Voix du Centre is also out today and talks about the conflict between the Port Authority of Douala and the DIT company. Plus, on page 10 and 11, you can also read about the different protection kits used by journalists in war zones. All of this could be read today on La Voix du Centre. Media Action is out today and says CAM Foundation evaluates the state's project on the rehabilitation of vulnerable and internally displaced persons in Cameroon. You can read all of these stories today on Media Action. L'Économie Quotidien is always out every day and talks about the possible business ventures between African countries and the Caribbeans. Ladies News is out today, talks about the Fadimatu Ibrahim affair or scandal in the north region of Cameroon. Fadimatu is said to be a victim of physical and moral abuse by her boss in that part of the country, a certain Ebuele Eyango Pierre Fleury, who works at the governor's service in the north region, alongside his subordinate Fadimatu. Ladies News also profiles the exploits of Cameroon Telecommunications Chief Executive Officer, Mrs. Judith Ya Sunday. You can read all of these stories today on Ladies News. Innovation is out, gives us special advice to Cameroonians coming from barrister Patrick Monte. You can read all of these stories today. Patrice Monte, I read with Patrice Monte. You can read these stories today on l'innovation. L'intégration is out today. Integration says over 1.5 billion francs CFA of fake notes or bank notes is already in circulation in the Cameroon economy. Santé Nature Info is out too and says the International Monetary Fund accuses the Ministry of Public Health for mismanaging $1 billion in the fight against malaria. It is to this effect that the Public Health Minister, Dr. Manauda Malachi, is on the verge to look out for the culprits so they might get punished for this particular mismanagement claims. Now, Le Populi is also out today. Le Populi, which is a comic paper, talks about or capitalizes on the presidential elections in 2025 and makes a comic joke, as always, this time reassuring Cameroonians that President Paul Biya is still going to win the elections in 2025. Quotidien Realite is out today. Quotidien Realite investigates and tells us the real reasons why there is a hike in the fabrication of national identity cards. I'm going to reiterate this point again. Quotidien Realite investigates and tells Cameroonians at large the real reason why there is a hike in the fabrication of national identity cards. You can read this story today, which is very intriguing on Quotidien Realite. Le Drapeau is out today and says 35 billion francs CFP has been allocated by the Cameroon government for the reconstruction of conflicted zones, which consist of the Far North region, the North region, and the Southwest regions, respectively. You can read all of these stories on Le Drapeau. L'Activateur is out today and throws light on misinformation in regards to the 23rd edition of the African Athleticism Championship, which is presently taking place in Douala at the Japoma Stadium. Eco Sante is out today, and Eco Sante talks health as always. He always discusses health and says President of the National Order of Pharmacists in Cameroon, Dr. Nana Frank, has announced the creation of central offices or control officers rather, who will supervise the distribution of pharmaceutical products in Cameroon. That's what Eco Sante has in store today for us. Generation Libre says over 600 widows received grants from Mayor Augustine Bala. Also, the paper talks of a fruitful relationship between His Royal Highness Nabil Mbombo Njoya and His Royal Highness Nji Mombo Seydou Pokam. You can read this story today on Generation Libre. Cameroon Soir Hebdo is also out there and says the organizing committee of the 23rd African Athleticism Championship is actually trying to readjust its strategies towards the competition. You can read all of these stories today on Cameroon Soir Hebdo. Le Quotidien is out today, talks about the hike of duty stamps on the ID card, and which has risen to 10,000 francs CFA instead of 2,800 francs CFA. You can read all of these stories on Le Quotidien. Le Témoin also understands, talks about the African Day of Public Service, an initiative heartily supported by Joseph Le, Minister of Public Service and Administrative Reforms. You can read this story today on Le Témoin, which is out on the stands as we speak. Le Soir is out. Says the yet to be constructed bridge on the Nyong and the Malobo is a futuristic investment that will foster development in that particular locality of Cameroon. A Comatin is out today, headlines today with the Glencore affair, and says the judiciary of the country is actually is accelerating its pace to elucidate this affair prior to the orders of the head of state, President Paul Biya. The Fear Actual is out today, talks the Glencore affair too, but this time on a different angle and different narrative, as the Minister of Finance, Luis Paul Mutaze, urges lawyers on this case to defend the interest of Cameroon. You can read this story today on the Fear Actual. Le Jour is out today and says the Port Authority in Douala loses its cases in Douala, but has been accorded a favorable sentence at the Court of Appeal in Paris, which is already looking like a win for the Port Authority in Douala in Paris, France. L'Info show is out today. In fact, the Info show talks about the North region of Cameroon, and it says in the Far North region of Cameroon, MRC political party, that's the Renaissance for Cameroon movement, that's the MRC political party, was restricted from inaugurating one of the developmental projects, which happens to be a borehole, in that part of the country. Lady Sahel says the DO of Mary instructed that the inauguration of the pipeline water supply system be cancelled in that part of the country. That's what he instructed, that inauguration of the pipeline water supply system by the MRC political party, or the CRM in English, the Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party, be cancelled in that part of the country. Conjuncture Economics out today talks about the rectification made by the head of state of the new laws of finance in Cameroon. You can read all of these stories on Conjuncture Economics, which talks mostly economic stories. You can read all of this today on that particular paper. Confidential questions where all the money in the country is going to, given that every year there is a huge budget hike, a huge budgetary hike, but yet over 10 million Cameroonians live with less than 1,000 francs per day. That's what Confidential has in store today for us. Emergence talks about something completely different and talks about the rising cost of living in the country. There's a whole story on that particular issue, as Cameroonians are constantly living with a very high cost of living these days in the country. Mutation says new ID cards have been has uploaded the initiative of new ID cards asset and says it intensifies, but now it has become also extremely costly and thinks the government should do something about that to subsidize the cost. Cameroon Tribune headlines with the major changes which have been executed and put in place to try to see how they can actually make the laws of finance look more desirable for Cameroonians. That's what Cameroon Tribune has in store today for us. And it is with Cameroon Tribune that will put an end and draw a curtain to this edition of our daily press review on CAM1 radio and television. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your keen attention and keep on listening and watching more programs on this particular network. For presentation, I was Ekome Charles Abane. See you tomorrow, same time, same place on this network.